Morning, everybody. So I am based in Singapore, and I work with sovereign wealth funds and private equity firms and public equity firms and family offices all around the Far East and also in the US and London. Toronto, I work with your pension fund and a couple of other funds in Toronto. And so very happy to be here today. So I want to talk about a couple of things. One is I worked with the federal government and the National Security Council, and I remember in 1986 we were installing something called the internet. And we had to explain to people that you can send a message to your colleague without having to walk down the hallway. And if you don't know where the NSC is, it's in the old executive office building, the Eisenhower. It's a big-ass building. You have to walk like 5 minutes to go see somebody. And people were saying, why are we doing this? Why can't we just walk down the road to the next person and go talk to them? How can I can just send my secretary to go give a message to the person on a piece of paper. Why do we have to do this? This is stupid. And so it just speaks to the inability of, the difficulty of adapting new technologies. And so if you look at the example of 5 examples I would give you, in 2000 on the internet, in 1910 the telephone, in 1931 uranium, on and on and on. We have examples where people give up and realize nothing's ever going to happen with uranium because it's 1931 and it's going to take a long time for this to develop. People were skeptical about the telephone, the PC. In 2001, people gave up and left California. And so I feel like, I was in California in 2001, and you could feel like all the energy was being drained out. That was the time to get in. So this is exactly the way that it feels today, where the real implementation here has never been Bitcoin. The implementation here has been blockchain. And you may not see it here. It's not 0.2%. It may be 0.2% here, but it's not 0.2% in Asia. It is like 30% in Asia. And the countries and the companies that are the most ahead in blockchain, beyond the shadow of a doubt, is China. And I want to show you some of the things that are going on in China right now. And one of the companies that has more blockchain patents than any other company in the world is Alibaba. And the stuff that they're doing in smart cities, the stuff that they implemented on 11/11 with blockchain is astounding. What happened in 11/11 and how much of the blockchain technology was implemented for the Singles Day a few weeks ago. So I want to talk about a few of these developments. But first of all, I'd like to talk about why it has taken so long for this to occur and what's happening in front of our eyes only in really the last 24 months. And so the example I would give you right now is how payments are seeping into almost all forms of banking. This requires tremendous evolution quickly in terms of digitizing the physical world. That's what blockchain is. Blockchain is a physical digitalization of a physical world which offers provenance. And that is the fundamental foundation of risk. I've been teaching, MBA students for 18 years, and I see things happening now in MBA programs which are making a lot of the traditional research and the traditional approach irrelevant. Because when you see a slide like this and you see that through Paytm and Ant, Alibaba is utterly transforming the financial landscape. When you look at Alibaba's ally in SoftBank, you see what they're doing in this, and this is causing an utter transformation across the entire board. And we haven't even seen the North American and European companies coming into the Far East yet, which is going to happen. So N26 in Germany has a 10% market share. It didn't exist 5 years ago. Cabbage didn't exist 7 years ago. It's the largest SME lender in the country, in the United States. Credit Karma is coming in. Obviously, Walmart is coming in. And when you have extremely complex, very large organizations which have up to 3 billion people, you're going to have blockchain applications ASAP, because otherwise it becomes impossible to digitize and to keep track of all the data. I just got hacked today. I'm a Starwood member. 500 million Starwood members were hacked today. My passport information, My address, my credit card numbers are gone. So I don't even know what the hell to do when I woke up this morning. So we're looking at a world that is very porous and is utterly and completely hackable in virtually every way. So there's no way that blockchain can be worse than what's happening right now. Now, here's another example where I talked a little bit about this yesterday, but you're seeing Alibaba moving into Tokopedia and Lazada. So Alibaba, with its Chinese operation and its Indian operation, and now in the last couple of years, its Indonesia operation has 3 billion customers already, right? So Alibaba is covering 40% of the planet in terms of what's happening with Tokopedia and Lazada. And again, you can see the major players here being Tencent, Tiger, SoftBank, and Temasek are creating very powerful enterprises across the Far East with anywhere between 750 million to 2.5 billion people. And what is the whole point of this? The whole point of this is to digitize activity, to digitize risk. And we are at the very bottom of the first pitch. We're not even in the second inning, we're in the first inning here. Now, here's an example where this is becoming really powerful as well in ride sharing, because ride sharing is becoming its own financial entity. I talked yesterday about Grab. I think Grab is the one you want to watch, because Grab, I think, is going to become a major financial powerhouse in Southeast Asia. And Tencent tends to dominate this in Didi in China, Gojek, Grab, and Ola in India. And this is all about finding some way to digitize physical activity on a motorcycle, in a car, what you eat, where you're going, who you're with, and also what you're delivering. Because Cabbage became a multi-billion-dollar company because Cabbage discovered the best way to understand the viability of an SME is through their package delivery and package sending. So Cabbage bought the UPS database, and now Cabbage is the largest SME lender in the country right now in the United States. They just bought the UPS database. And so these databases become extremely valuable, but we're going to have some way to quantify and digitize all this, and that's why I think blockchain is coming along at the right time. I think it hasn't taken off because we didn't need it. And now that you have this vast amount of data that needs to be digitized, it's coming along at the right time. I talked yesterday about Amazon and what Amazon is up to and the kinds of things that Amazon was not doing any of this 2 to 3 years ago. So again, in the area of online payments, lending, finance, and insurance, Amazon was not present 36 months ago in a country with north of 1 billion people. And I believe Amazon is going to want to expand this and backward engineer this into other emerging markets and into the West. It just so happens that Amazon picked India as its launching point for what's happening. And I talked a lot about agriculture yesterday as well. Now, what's happening as well is banks are picking up on this, and so your competition now is banks. And so you look at, again, these are all a couple of years old. In the banks, and I work with 5 bank boards and 1 insurance board right now, and I have been begging them for 2 years, digitize a separate digital entity. If you try to digitize your entity from the bottom up, you're going to be sitting there in 10 years wondering why you just spent $3 billion and you're nowhere. There's too much inertia in human institutions to change. You've got to create entrepreneurial places like Vancouver, Singapore. I was talking with one of the other guys here from Amsterdam. Where did you go, Jasper? Yeah, with Jasper and with other people in Barcelona, Singapore, Vancouver, Amsterdam are doing astonishing stuff. And even JP Morgan with Finn, Goldman Sachs with Marcus. When Goldman Sachs launched Marcus, it was like, okay, here's $50 million and go do something. We don't even know what the hell this is going to be. Marcus, as a pure digital bank, is now the most profitable element of Goldman Sachs 3 years later, right? And so we got to be careful about, there are some people who are waking up. I can guarantee you from the banks I work with, most of them are brain dead and are missing out year after year after year. And I believe for some of the banks, it's going to be too late. And so below you have Alibaba with My Bank, Tencent with WeBank, and Ping An with Lufax are coming down the pike very rapidly as pure online digital banks. And so this is a new element of your competition going forward, and most of it now is coming out of China. This shows you what's happening with the transformation of companies like Tokopedia and Paytm into financial service companies. Again, yesterday, yesterday was great, Craig. It was so great to have that exercise in collaboration. From all, I've spoken in Sydney, Amsterdam, Dublin, Hong Kong, Singapore recently, a few other cities. I can tell you just from being in like 6 cities that are on fire right now, like Vancouver is, there has to be a profound leapfrog in innovation and in collaboration in this innovation. There needs to be a massive consolidation of this room into a small number of companies through collaboration. I'm convinced. Because there's too many individual actors who are doing too many interesting things that are competing against people like this. And so I think the faster that collaboration occurs, the better. And secondly, I loved the presentation before from the gentleman from the government. You know, we always have that joke about I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. This can't happen without government, and that's why China gets it, Singapore gets it, Dublin gets it, Barcelona gets it. Right? The United States is kidding itself if you think you don't need a technology and industrial policy. How do you think the internet was created in the 1980s? It was the US government. I was there, I know, I saw the paperwork. Right? How do you think Google got to #1 from 14? Not because of hard work. It was funded by the CIA In-Q-Tel hedge fund. Right? Palantir was funded by the CIA's In-Q-Tel hedge fund. So there's a need to understand that collaboration needs to occur and consolidation needs to occur with the help of policy. And I think that the policy direction that we see here is very smart. Singapore gets it in a big way. Singapore wants to become a global blockchain center, globally, not regionally, globally. So they're not messing around. So I think there needs to be a lot more cooperation, consolidation, the use of the association to lobby hard with the provincial and the central government to move ahead. Because you're dealing with, like, Tokopedia has become a full-service financial institution in 18 months. Paytm has become a full-service financial institution in 18 months. Alibaba got 250 million customers in 18 months. Right? So this is happening very quickly right in front of our eyes, and so I think we need to pay attention. What I tell people when I work with them in banks is you need to separate yourself into 5 groups. A fintech group, because fintech is now collapsing into IoT, right? Fintech is no longer its own thing, forget it. Right? Fintech is a subsidiary of a pentagon of cloud, sensor, logistics, and artificial intelligence. And that's the way that I talk to my clients who are bank boards about how you need to, and by the way, Craig, anybody can have this PowerPoint, just, it's everybody's, right? So, yeah, for $10, yeah. So, some tickets to a basketball game or something is fine, yeah. So that's what I tell my clients who are banks and also insurance companies is the same thing. In fact, it's astounding how blockchain is like made for insurance, even more than banking. And it's astonishing how little the insurance companies are doing to get with the program on this. There's such a fantastic opportunity in insurance. Now, here is the problem that I talked a little bit about yesterday and why the banks are dying. Take a look at that. Take a look at all the stuff that banks have had, the data that they've had on you guys, on all of us, for 25 years and did zero with it. So that's where Alibaba, Amazon, Walmart have got astonishing leaps and bounds advantage against the banks, and why HSBC, Standard Chartered, a lot of these Commonwealth banks especially, are deeply problematic. And so if you look at advertising, food delivery, tickets, lifestyle, music, utilities, coupons, wallet, voice shopping, and groceries, this is where, you know, the bank should have been on top of this like a cheap suit a long, long time ago, and they're utterly and completely absent from every single one of these, right? It's astounding. And so this is why I think that some of these banks are just, one of these banks is just going to topple over. The one in Germany might be the one. So just watch out, right? And so be careful, right? And so this is what's happening, right, with the capability of these organizations to create multi, service lifestyle companies, which also include financial services. Now, this is what I want to talk about again. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. This is my block clock that I created. A lot of this I sort of summarized. I read Don Tapscott's book twice, and chapter 3 and 4 you have to read. Chapter 3 and 4 of that book is everything is in there. Everything you need to know is in chapter 3 and 4 of that book. And one of my friends actually, who's the head of Huawei in the Middle East, worked with Don like 30 years ago, setting up the security system of your Canadian postal system. That's how Don, got his, cut his teeth. And this guy said that guy, Don, is like one of the smartest people he's ever met in the business, and this is the head of Huawei for the Middle East now. And so that is a summary of the book in front of you. And so we have a full court threat to the accounting industry in number 1 through 3. We have a full court threat to the banking system in 4, 5, and 6, especially in the triple ledger entry, which is extremely important. How did the banks become so powerful? The balance sheet. Who invented the balance sheet? The banks, right? And so when was the balance sheet invented? 1480. Has the balance sheet changed since 1480? No, right? This is a way to challenge the balance sheet and to take the balance sheet away from the bank. This is so clear to me. That's the power of blockchain. It removes the balance sheet from the bank because people have had it. People have had it with the corruption and the out of control behavior of the banks from the GFC. It just takes a long time for these industries to reinvent themselves. And also 7, 8, and 9 is also a full court press on the insurance companies. And what is happening with Ping An in China and the stuff that they're doing in the insurance industry is truly astounding. And then of course you have 10, 11, and 12, which is the middlemen, State Street, Bank of New York. These monopolies are going away. This is a challenge to every existing cartel. And that's why this stuff takes a long time to get accepted, because there are a lot of people out there who don't want this technology to be brought into the mainstream, of course, right? So there's a lot of uphill battles. But I think I think this year was a shift, a changing point, and I believe the changing point has come because of China. And the fact that China did not have any copper. China did not have powerful lobbyists, like credit card companies who are protecting this from happening. China did not have all this federal and provincial regulatory overlay that the U.S. has, in Canada, UK, Europe has of decades of ivy growing up the walls. And so when you see what's happening with Alibaba, Tencent, and Amazon in the last couple of years in the Far East, you're getting a lot of people realizing that the cat's out of the bag. The bottle's opened up, the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. You can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube. And so I want to give you an example of one of the most interesting company. Check out ledgergo.com. LEDGER, ledgerco.com. That is a new enterprise with the PRC government, which is a blockchain-based public-private cooperation with the PBOC to do blockchain-based working capital lending for the SMEs. Again, one of the most fascinating applications of blockchain is for SME lending. Because why? Because there's so many, blockchain is ideal for extremely large amounts of data where there's tiny amounts of money at stake, right? You combine those two. You have to create provenance and a sense of ownership of who's talking to whom with small amounts of money through vast networks. And I can't think of anything more appropriate than SME lending, because banks, I was talking to the head of Cabbage at a conference, this great guy, and I said, well, how come banks aren't getting this? And he said, it's not that banks don't want to do it, banks don't know how to do it. Banks don't know how to approach SME lending. And there's like 50 million SMEs who are starved of capital in the Far East. And so if you have something like this where you can use blockchain to connect the entire food chain logistically, of rubber all the way to the tires that go on a car, this is what the PBOC is trying to achieve in 21 centers in China, right? And so this is taking the working capital away from the bank and applying it through this ledgergo.com into a public-private partnership with the central bank. As I mentioned yesterday as well, I was at the Singapore Fintech Festival when Christine Lagarde was there, head of the IMF, who said, she pretty much astonished everybody by saying, look, we've been very resistant about this. I'm going to tell you right now that we're looking at a world where it's possible for us to have a crypto coin application through central banks. We don't see it happening soon, but there's a case to be made. And everybody was like, holy crap, this is the IMF telling people central bank applications of cryptocurrencies is coming. And I'm almost like astonished, because I've been looking at China since 1991, and I've been living out in the Far East since 1987. And I'm always astonished, because I think a lot of people say, hey, this is going to happen. But they don't realize that it's already happened, right? The blockchain application has already happened in China, and it's happening in smart cities. It's happening in finance. It's happening in the application of SME lending. This is happening right now already. There is massive blockchain adaptation in China that is way above 0.2. It's more like 20 or 30. And some of the companies that are in front are almost all Chinese companies. And the entity that has more patents than any other entity in the world for blockchain is the People's Bank of China. They're the #1 recipient of patents in the world, only followed by Alibaba. What are they trying to do in this application? Link the data, connect users, communicate policy, and create the platforms. It's all about the platform. And if you're not on a platform and you're starting a company, you're not doing it right. I've been having my own research company for 7 years now, and I got to find a platform. I'm in talks with several people on a platform. We can't do this without a platform. If you think you can do this without a platform, I think you're kidding yourselves. There has to be a more collaborative effort with platforms to get your scale in order to achieve some sort of profitability. Otherwise, I think we're all just spinning our wheels. Now, here's two issues to think about. I gave a talk yesterday afternoon to the Ivy School in Toronto, and I talked about this, and this was a central question. Where's Canada going with this? Where's Canada going with Huawei, right? 2 days ago, New Zealand just rejected Huawei, right? Australia has rejected Huawei. The United States has rejected Huawei. Canada and the UK are the two ones who are remaining sort of on the fence. Huawei has universal adaptation throughout the entire Far East. It's already a done deal. Forget it. You can't unbake that cake. So 3 billion people already work in Huawei. In Asia, 1 billion people are on about 150 million Huawei phones in Africa. That's baked in the cake. What's going to happen with the Five Eyes? And we talked about this yesterday at the Ivy School, your wonderful, terrific program in Toronto. And here's what I see. I see a world and we'll see, Trump's having dinner tonight with Xi to see what's going to be happening. But I am not that optimistic. I think we're going to see a bifurcation, and Canada is going to have to make some decisions. But I believe the Five Eyes are going to, the eyes are going to have it. I think that the UK and Canada are going to go in that same direction. Because if you already have the US, Australia, New Zealand, the three of the Five Eyes saying adios, Huawei, I think it's probably inevitable that the UK and Canada are going to do the same thing. That's my sense. Because I just think we're in a new Cold War. And I think there's a lot of momentum that's gathering here that's brought to you, not by people in the White House, but people in the Pentagon. And so you guys have to think about how you're going to position yourself in terms of sort of a bifurcated world where one is sort of Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, and one is sort of AT&T, Verizon, Qualcomm, Apple, Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And so I think that I just want to bring that up and tell you, I think this is a very important topic to think about. And I'm going to end it there. But just in conclusion, I think there is a profound need for the community here to consider much more radical and rapid adaptation of collaboration and a much more profound integration of platforms as rapidly as possible, because you're dealing with Amsterdam, Barcelona, Singapore, Dublin, and to a lesser extent, some of the Eastern European cities, Prague, St. Petersburg. And I think that Hong Kong and Toronto are financial centers that are increasingly finding it difficult to change because they're very established financial centers. And so talent is draining away from Hong Kong to Singapore, and I see talent draining away from Toronto to Vancouver. So that's it. I'm around all day. I don't think we have time for maybe one question, or what's the deal, or if I just have to move on, or Craig, you're the MC today?
We have, Brittany here.
Yeah. Brittany? Yeah, Brittany?
One very good question.
Yeah.
One quick mention. Anyone? There's a lot of information. Anyone?
I'd like to know if anybody thinks Canada is going to accept Huawei. Is Canada gonna buck the four of the Five Eyes? This is an important question. I think not. I think that it's gonna be a thing where people are gonna have to become like Switzerland. Singapore wants to become the Switzerland of information and the Switzerland of genomic medical data. And so, we're not taking sides with anybody, but we're going to be a Switzerland of protected data. Now, good luck. I hope Singapore is successful. It could be. But I think we're going to be in a world where the US may not give people that option. So just a lot to think about. And I'll leave it at that, and I'll be around all day.